I have a podcast that Chris has been on a couple times that is called Quality Intelligence, QI. If anybody has a PCQI, you understand that QI. Quality Intelligence Food Safety. And what we're trying to do there, obviously free, we're just trying to get the word out. Like, there just doesn't seem to be this second level of education. I mean, you can get a HACCP training just about anywhere, right? You can get PCQI just about anywhere. What about the real live work on the ground type information? Well, as auditors, we're not allowed to consult, and as consultants, we're not, we'll internally audit you, but we won't be able to do anything else. Well, how do we get that out? Well, with 10 years of doing this at 90 or so sites I visit every year, that's a lot of sites. That's a lot of time on the ground. That's a lot of best practices, okay practices, not so great practices. And so I wanted to get those things out to you, and I wanted to bring the experts to you. So we have Chris on. I have other experts on. I've had one, Dr. Bowser from the Oklahoma State University, and he talks about equipment. So get on that, listen to it. If you have ideas, I've got some cards over here. Let me know what kinds of things you want to talk about or ask about. I've got some stuff on AI used in our industry, all of that. But let me just get you a kind of a baseline. Here's where we are in the industry right now. And what I call this is divergent demands, because realistically, you guys have a ton of things going on, and it's hard to know which one is really the first thing you need to get going, okay? So as you heard, I have been doing this for about 10 years, been in and out of the food industry all my life. I kind of like to eat, kind of thing. And I absolutely love helping people keep their businesses going. We got to keep those jobs on the ground. We got to keep everybody doing what they need to be doing. And if you don't have something that you can live with, these regulations, these criteria for all your certifications, they're going to drown you. They'll drown you. So how do we do that? How do we make it livable? That's my thing. I want to make it livable. And so I do a lot of codes. I've been around for a long time. I do mostly FDA, but there's a few USDA type things over there. But these are the industries that I work with regularly, both auditing and consulting. And so what I want to do is I want to talk to you about where we are in the industry today and how do we go about making this work for you, work for your companies, work for your customers, all right? First and foremost, let's not have any recalls, okay? Outbreaks are even worse, but recalls, you guys know what the difference is, right? Somebody actually got sick in an outbreak. Recalls, we went, oops, we got a problem. We're going to pull it all back. Hopefully nobody got sick. It's not a big deal. It's not a huge deal, all right? So, but every time we have a recall, that can cause up to $10 million a pop. That is going to kill your company. That is going to kill some jobs. We don't want that. So what do we have to do? We have to go all about prevention, all right? And that also means warehouses. That also means storage and distributions. We've had two major problems with warehouses, one in Wisconsin, one down in Arkansas, where there were 2,000 rats on the Family Dollar one. That company got fined $41.7 million. It's a big deal. It's a really, really big deal. You cannot afford to have a problem. So what are we talking about in the industry right now? Well, so because this is going to bridge the gap between pest control, which is a foundational process, and food safety and getting those certificates done so that your customers can feel really comfortable that you're doing everything right, you're doing everything the way you should, just to make sure that your product is safe when it goes out the door. Well, reality is everybody's looking at all these recalls coming in the mainstream news now, right? They're really all about the mainstream news, and they are saying, what the heck? What's going on? You've had all these certificates, and yet we're still getting all these recalls. So they're tightening the reins, right? Like, they're asking the auditors, you got to start hitting them for this and this and this and this. They may or may not have provided that information with detail to you. Now, SQF has tips and topics sheets on the SQFI.com website. Used to be, it was more like, well, we've got some, interpretations, but it's primarily the standard. Now they're really, really focusing on wanting you to do it. The how is much more important. That how really should be done based on the tips and topic sheets that are on the website. In BRCGS, they have a guidance document. If there's an interpretation question, it goes to the guidance document. Okay? That guidance document is almost an addendum to the actual standard. So that's what they're looking for. So have your people go from there. That's what they're looking for. Tech is driving a ton of change. We've got regulations multiplying. The regulators kind of have had some difficult times because of all these recalls. So now we're going to be like, okay, we want it done. We're not playing. We're kind of past that education stage. We're gonna start hitting you with fines. We're gonna start hitting you with we're coming back. We're gonna hit you with swabathons. All right, you really don't want that. So we have really exhausted teams. What I'm seeing out there when I'm auditing, the scores are going down partly because we have to tighten them, but mostly because people are just tired. They're missing stuff, right? They've got too many things to think about. They can't get it all done in a day. They're getting distracted, and they're missing the big things. The problem is the stuff that really matters, it's not the foo-foo stuff. It's the basics. You know what's killing people? It's maintenance. It's sanitation. It's pest control. It's just regular GMPs. She'll tell you. She's going to tell you that this afternoon, all right? It's not the fun stuff. I hate to tell you this. It's the stuff that's day in and day out. How do you keep your eyes really on the important picture? Well, you cut out everything extra. Okay? If it was a check the box for check the box sake, we don't need it. If it's a check the box because I know I need to go out there, and you go out there and you set up yourself for 20 minutes, just 20 minutes a week, that you have no agenda. You have no agenda on that floor, but you're on that floor. You're not doing paperwork. You're not looking for something specific. You don't have to go talk to this person over here. You're just out on that floor. You're just watching. You're just looking. You're just taking it all in. You're just, how's it going today? What kinds of things are you having problems with? Getting ahead of the problems. That's where we need to be with all of our programs. Keeping that bandwidth so you're not tired and your teams are not tired, and you have some space to think ahead, to do the prevention and not constantly being reactive to all of the things that you need to do. We've got new things coming into play. We have never had listeria on a freeze-dried product before. Like, this doesn't make sense. CBOT on an infant formula. Like, this stuff, things are changing. Even biological pathogens are pests in general, right? So these things have been mutating. Just like our rodents are continuing to be harder and harder to manage because they're figuring us out, literally. We have too many routines that they can figure out, right? So these things are changing. We have to get ahead of them, get into the prevention mode, not the reaction mode. So listeria in nut butter is not something we normally think about. We always think about the salmonella. We didn't used to have to worry about salmonella on dry onions. All of these things are becoming problems that we have to get ahead of. Some of that getting ahead of is the supplier approval program. And that means your suppliers should be expected to do all the things you have to do yourself, including pest control. Solid pest control. Regulations, well, the FDA is starting to use AI to look at what kinds of things need to come up as far as inspections. We're moving away from the surveillance after the fact. They're trying to get to ahead of what's going on. FSVP, where you're getting some ingredients from outside the country, they're coming after. All right? Changes in what you have to actually label for becomes a problem. There's changes in emphasis, changes in everywhere. How do you keep ahead of those? One, you got to watch what's coming over your internet. You got to say, hey, I'm going to get some emails from things. I'm going to keep an eye on what the industry has. IFSQN on the web has some really good forums, things of that nature. Auditors are going to have to be really focusing in on things. The competency is a big deal. But really, truly, if you do have a problem, you need to think about what is going to happen in your corrective action, preventative action program. All right? How are you not only going to correct it, but how are you going to make sure it doesn't happen again? The GFSI standards are changing a lot. SQF has just come out with version 10. We have a focus on auditor competency. They want more detail. They're going to really be focusing in on environmental monitoring, management of change. That's going to be a big one. Corrective actions, food safety culture. Let's talk about food safety culture. What does food safety culture mean? Anybody tell me what food safety culture means?
Practices within an establishment to ensure that there is not the cross-contamination, there is not the time temp abuse, there is not the machinery that is unsanitized, et cetera.
Right. What else? What other things can show food safety culture? What is culture? How you live, behaviors. What's up? What we do every day. One of the ways I like to call it is, what does somebody do when nobody's looking? All right? Yeah. Are they going to tell you if something's wrong, or are they just going to let it go? Right? Well, how do you encourage that? Well, training has always been a thing. Okay? So I get a lot of people, so I ask them, I say, what do you do for food safety culture? We do training. Well, you've always had to do training. What else did you do? Well, we write somebody up if they do something wrong.
We've always done that. What else do you do?
What you got? I'm sorry? Write it up to even there's no right. So they get recognition and performance stuff. Does anybody do reward systems? Do you want to catch them doing something right? Right? What other things? Like how are you training them? So when you're training them, so like for instance, you have to do GMPs. In BRC, you have to have some packaging and labeling and training. You have to do other training, basic training, food defense, food fraud, environmentals. Well, what about pest control training? Do your people know the signs of Indian meal moth? Do your people know what the smell of rodent smells are? Okay. What do the storage pests look like in their different stages? That's what your pest control companies can help you with, right? You should be expecting that of them. They should be helping you to educate your people. Your people are your first line of defense. They are the only thing that makes you successful. I don't care how much automation you have in your site. If it's not for the people, you will not be successful. Yes, automation is great. Yes, robotics are fantastic. One mouse can eat through a wire.
Your robotics will be down for a long time.
So, how do we make sure that all that stuff is taken care of? Well, we get ahead of it, right? For SQF, they're putting out a new code, version 10. They expect that to start being audited to approximately January 1. They are changing the scoring. They are increasing the time you have to fix your problems. They are also setting a time for appeals. If you don't think that your auditor told you did the right thing, you need to appeal. Okay? There's some question about some auditors out there right now. Okay? Most of these places that had recalls had an auditor. So, your auditor is not your friend. However, they can help you a lot. So, if you think you're having problems with resources, what kinds of things can your auditor do or talk about in the closing meeting or happen to write on for you that will help you move that dial? Right? Auditors can help you get what you need to be successful. use them that way. If they don't recognize what you need during that audit, you might have to put a bug in their ear. Hey, I've been working on this. You know, would you consider talking about it, your experiences in the closing meeting? Auditors tell stories. We like to tell stories. We like to talk. Well, have them tell stories about what they've seen in different places. It can give you best practices. We can't consult. We're not consulting. We're just telling you about what we've seen, right? So you can make this audit process help you get to where you know you need to be. When you look at version 10, read the glossary. They're expanding it by 40%. That's how they're part of the way they're doing their interpretations. You're going to want to do that. It makes a difference. They're going to change the scoring to have core clauses. Those core clauses are going to be worth more hit as far as if you get a nonconformance in that clause is going to hit you on your score higher. So those core clauses are management commitment, management review, complaints, supplier approval, food safety plan, environmentals, corrective actions, and traceability. And by the way, even though they didn't list it in there, if you're not doing a good internal audit or you're not having a good internal audit done, that's going to cause you some problems. That internal audit needs to be independent. That may mean bringing in a consultant. That may mean training somebody else on your team that really has a system view of your process. Okay? If it's somebody who doesn't understand your process and they're just checking the box so you can say it's independent, that is not going to work. It's going to hurt you more than it's going to help you. Okay? So make sure that your people are trained, they understand what you do, and that they're doing a good review. Because if you tell on yourself, I get to give you credit. If I find it, I don't. It becomes a nonconformance. So you want to find your things, find your issues, and work on them. I get to give you credit twice. Not only did you do a good internal audit, you did a great corrective action. And you may be still working on it. Maybe it's not closed. Okay, maybe the first time you did it, and the idea that you thought you had, that you thought it was going to work, it didn't. Okay, no problem. Sometimes things don't work. Just keep it on your corrective action program. Keep track of it. Talk about it in your meetings. Management of change is going to be a big new thing. Like, how do you make sure that everything that's coming through, that all the changes that you have are getting put through all the right people and getting approved, and oh, we didn't know that label changed. Oops. That ingredient list did not say that it had an allergen on it. Oops. No, not oops. We've got to be keeping track of all this stuff. So these are the core clauses. They're not the same thing as mandatory clauses. You have mandatory clauses, which means you have to have a program in that process. And then you got core clauses. And these core clauses are going to hit you more. All right? Always, always, always read the guidance. You want those tips and topic sheets. You want to do those things like that. Because what's going on now is they're doing validation audits. Those validation audits say, okay, your auditor was in 2 weeks ago. Now SQF is going to come knocking on your door, unannounced. Hi, we're here to do a validation audit. What are we looking at in those validation audits? We're looking at annual reviews. We're looking at, what did the auditor say they looked at? Oh, they looked at that. What did the auditor say about that? Oh, that doesn't quite look the same. Oh. And what they're finding in these validation audits, unfortunately, really high scores, but when SQF comes in, it doesn't. They wouldn't have scored it that way. That's a problem. When you look at the information that's out there on the web about some of these recalls, they were doing okay, but they weren't. You got a question?
I do. Have we possibly done that to ourselves with our KPIs that we have set, oh, well, my score has to be 90?
Absolutely.
So like, how do I, at my bakery, what do I do? Because now if I get a 97,
I would say that your KPIs need to be solid and less score-based and more process-based. Is the process working? So yeah, you need KPIs, okay? Think about some KPIs. Here's a KPI, might work for the food safety culture. I know I've got some problems with complaints. Maybe they're not hitting the food safety complaint yet, but I know I got some problems with complaints. What am I doing to encourage people to put a hold on that product? I can release it in 2 seconds. But if I have any suspicion that there's a quality or food safety problem with that product, I need everybody on the line to say, stop. Okay? Doesn't mean I'm going to have a lot of downtime. Doesn't mean I'm not going to release that product 2 seconds later. But I need everybody to know that that they can say, stop. I need to have somebody look at this. If that happens, your holds will go up. Well, maybe that's the idea. If your holds go up, your complaints may go down. If your holds go up, you may not have a recall. Awesome. It only takes one. It only takes one time for your company to go down with a recall. That brand name now is all over the internet, all over the news. The lawyers are coming after you. You might have hurt somebody, God forbid. And you are in a bad situation. Wouldn't you rather have somebody said, just stop for a second, let's double check this? Right? So maybe your KPI is that I have more holds. Right? Okay. So they go up until, let's say you have a high turnover. Like a lot of people are having high churn. Like you're talking about the labor thing. So people are having a lot of high turnover. So if they're having a high turnover and you're getting lots of holds for a second, okay, maybe I want that as my KPI. Because eventually those people are going to learn what is good and what is bad. And then our KPIs and then it's going to go down. And that's fine. Maybe your KPI is complaints. Maybe your KPI is findings on internal audits. It's about process and not about a score. Because I can tell you that one auditor, maybe this year you've got an auditor, they've been there 3 times, they know you pretty well, maybe they're having a rough day, maybe they didn't they didn't catch a couple things, they gave you a good high score. Maybe the next auditor comes in, they've had a bad day, hopefully not, and they look at things way different. Unfortunately, I would love to say we're all calibrated, we're not. Okay? But a good auditor, you can have a dialogue with as to what you do, why you do it, and how that makes the code. And if you can do that, then you should have no problems. As long as your program is set up and you're working it, you should have no problems at all. But do read the guidance especially when it comes to objectives and culture, because they are going to be very, very interested. Your assessments they're going to ask you for an assessment, they're going to ask you for a performance process, all of that. We're going to have all kinds of changes with the management of change. All of your procedural things, your annual reviews, those are going to get more detailed. Do read the topics and tip sheets. The primary practitioner has to be employed at the site. It can't just be someone coming in. There's going to be a lot more work on shelf life of products. So if you have a shelf life of 3 years, but you don't keep your records for 3 years, that's kind of a problem. Okay, I know FDA says 2 years, but realistically, if you have a recall in the 3rd year, what are you going to do? Okay. You're going to have to do a lot more through your management meetings, and I'm going to encourage you to do much more through your management meetings. That management of change, that's hard to manage. Like, what happens if your quality person doesn't hear about the thing that's changing in your maintenance? Well, first of all, they should have. So how do you make sure that rolls around all the time? Management meetings, right? Make them useful to what you're doing. Management of change is going to mean everything from equipment to labels to ingredients to formulation to all of the things, even including temporary changes, like temporary pest control devices being put on a new map. Okay. Oh, we have a condemned building across the street, and it's going to go down. We've been able to kind of manage that with the outside devices and all of that, but they're taking it down. Boom. Well, now we got a lot of pests coming over. Now all of a sudden our numbers have shot up like crazy. And don't tell me this hasn't happened, okay? Or flooding, same thing, flooding, do the same thing. So now we need more traps, we need more outside bait stations, we need our pest control to probably do another review. Management change, temporary changes. Probably won't take forever, but at some point, you need to work on that. Do you have an off-site warehouse? They also need to be audited by you, hopefully, and or by an outside warehouse. Again, because of the Family Dollar and the one in Wisconsin that had like
Lots of problems.
So you're going to need to really look at these new requirements. Your customers are going to be looking at these new requirements. You got to make it livable. The SQF is going to be quote unquote shorter.
However,
You're never less requested. So you need to think about all the Roman numerals in every clause. Okay, they kind of dumped everything into a clause. Every one of those things is a possible nonconformance. So don't just read the headlines. Read every one of the Roman numerals. You want to do who, what, when, where, how, and how much. How does this all work? Keep it simple, but if you answer those questions and you make sure everything works, it will work for you. Then we've got other things going on in the industry, right? So changes, so we have new reformulations because of the dye question, because of SNAP, because we don't want as much sugar in things, because we need more protein with the new pyramid. All of those things are going to make a difference in how we handle things. They're also going to make it for packaging. Several of the states have a PFAS, those forever chemicals. They have the PFAS requirements. So if you have product packaging that may be touching your food, different states have different requirements. If you're sending stuff to California, you need to know that it's going to be less than 100 points per billion. So let's make sure that all of those things work in your product review process. All these things are changing buying patterns. I just talked to an executive recently that I went to a commodities symposium, and they said sugar use is down by 85%. Yeah. SNAP programs are reducing things. MAHA movement, school lunch programs. I'm like, really? They call it the Ozempic effect. So if one person in the household does Ozempic, then kind of the whole rest of the household gets to have it too because they're doing the grocery buying. So yeah, now I have a hard time believing 85% really truly, but that could definitely be our future, right? Because when you start adding school lunch programs and changing the way we eat and the Ozempic effect and all of the cost of sugary foods and not being able to put on SNAP, those things will change. So how is that going to change our formulations? Well, when we change our formulations, now we got a management of change process, right? So let's get to where we can make sure that all of our stuff is set up with a customer focus. They're going to have tighter margins. They're going to be shifting buying. That means we need more time on the floor. We need more time thinking about what might happen and preventing it. So yes, we're having centralization and fewer food companies, and we're having attrition, and then we're not going to hire those positions. So simplify, simplify, simplify. We need to make sure that we're working towards what's actually happening. Food defense, where are we having food defense? Was it an intruder? Maybe. Is it a disgruntled employee? More likely. But the actual food defense hits that we're finding are actually on the road. They are rerouting by electronic means full truckloads and holding them for ransom. I've had a couple of my clients have this happen. Or they forgot to put the seal on, and then we were stuck in traffic, and then they got in and pulled it right off while they were stuck in traffic. Or they forgot to put the seal on. They have their name splashed across this truck. Somebody wanted to make some people really scared. We call this terrorism. And so they put needles in the product. Okay, you need to think about where this is going. And think about what can happen. Most of us are all law-abiding citizens, right? Great. Oh, it'll never happen to us. Excuse me? I've had 11 of my clients be hacked. Some of them were inside jobs. Okay? So you have to think about what would happen to your records if you got hacked and they took away your traceability. Now you can't do a recall if you don't have something basic that will at least get you sort of there. All right? So we've got AI coming on. AI is going to fix everything, right? Well, I could give you some epic fails of some AI that related to food safety. But there are some good things coming along with food safety and AI. We've got some people on my podcast that will talk about AI and some of the things that are going on. We're going to get there with AI, but it's a tool, not a replacement. Because if you don't know what you expect it to come out to be, you can't tell if that AI is hallucinating or not. You can't tell if they're giving you the right answer. There has to be a person validating what's going on in that AI process. Now, some of the tools that we're using for record keeping and data analysis and trending, and by the way, you're going to need a ton of trending on the next round of GFSI certificates. Trending is going to be everything. Like, how do you use the data that you've been dumping into these data repository softwares forever and ever and ever, amen. But once you have that data, you need to be able to look at that trend, use that trend, and make sure that trend is actually a true trend. Okay? How do you validate and verify the data? If something else is handling it too much and there's not a person involved validating and verifying, you've got a problem. Let me tell you, I've found quite a few. So under 251 in SQF validation, even if it doesn't say that you need validation of electronic systems, I'm going to tell you, if you can't check and find that rework in the traceability on your ERP, somebody's going to do it, and hopefully it's not the consumer. All right, so you need to validate those systems. AI really should be a tool for us, and it's coming. I'm not going to say it's there. I haven't seen any great AI yet for food safety, but it's coming, and it will get there. But we just need to be on it, and it's not a replacement for people. So what do you really need to do? You need to assess the gaps, right? Especially if you do any foreign supplier verification. You need to ensure there's sufficient training in the teams, especially in pest control. All right, I rarely see that as one of the items. You need to prepare for traceability rule if you happen to be on the fresh side of things and on the traceability list. That's coming in July of 28. You need to update your ERP systems. Make sure that they have all their allergens in them. One of these findings that I found at one of my places was I found 250 allergens not listed in their ERP system for labeling. Luckily, none of it had gone out. You want to talk about us sweating bullets at that moment? That was really bad. Evaluate your resources. You might need to have some expert help. So outside eyes can help you do a few things. We can look at it differently. We've been there, we've done that. We've seen the good, bad, the ugly. We can help you move the dial to make it livable. You want more compliance, easier on you, And we want to make sure that those resources are there when you need them to prevent the problems.
That was great information. And we invite you to like, subscribe, and share. You can find more information and additional resources at heavensentfoodsafety.com. Join us next time for another episode of Quality Intelligence Food Safety.